More than 40 people were injured in an explosion in Japan. The explosion took place at a bar in Sapporo and it caused nearby buildings to shake. One person is said to be in a critical condition. The video of the incident that has been posted on social media shows the flames and also dark smoke coming out of the building. The people scrambled to safety and the police and firefighters worked to get the fire under control. Eyewitnesses reported smelling gas in the area following the explosion. The cause of the explosion is still under investigation. Thousands of people marched in Brussels, the capital of Belgium, against the United Nations Migration Pact. The pact is aimed at fostering cooperation on migration. The signing of this pact has brought down Belgium's government just last week. The police said that as many as about 5,500 people marched in protests organized by the right-wing parties. And also a separate counter-demonstration in which almost over 1,000 people took place in the city centre in Brussels. And this was organized by the left-wing groups. And the NVA, which is the biggest party in the parliament, in fact, has pulled its ministers out from the ruling coalition. This after Prime Minister Charles Michel said that he will be signing the pact.
Een uitkering die vaak veel hoger ligt dan het loon dat ze in een land van herkomst hebben.
Georgia gets its first woman president. She was sworn into office amidst continued protests. Opposition alleges that her election is actually tainted. Salome Zurabishvili vowed to defend the country's independence in a speech. She is also vowed to deepen ties with NATO as well. And she's in fact chosen an 18th century palace in Tel Aviv for her inauguration. Opposition activists clashed with the police and the authorities have blocked access to the activists to the inauguration's venue. Pakistan has called for the protection of civilians in the Indian-administered Kashmir region. Pakistan's Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi has sought action from the international community to protect them from the killing spree by the occupation forces. His comments came a day after clashes killed 7 civilians and 4 combatants. He called the international community as apathetic to such disputes. He also stressed that intervention is necessary from a humanitarian perspective. A senior official of the Houthi armed forces has said that ceasefire that was agreed upon at the Yemen peace talks will begin on the 18th of December. He said that Houthis were in fact ready to respond if the people of Yemen did not keep their word. Now, the residents in Hodeidah are hoping that the ceasefire will bring peace and stability. The Iranian-aligned Houthi group and also the Saudi-backed Yemeni government had agreed to withdraw their forces at the end of the peace talks. Even after the agreement of a ceasefire at the peace talks, clashes were reported in the port city of Hodeidah. Hodeidah witnessed airstrikes and also deadly fighting on the outskirts overnight. The United Nations envoy to Yemen, Martin Griffiths, has called for the pro-government forces and rebels to respect the ceasefire. He also said that the United Nations was putting efforts to ensure that the accord on Hodeidah was implemented timely and properly. The Israeli military has said that it has exposed a 4th HEZBOLLAH attack tunnel dug from Lebanon. Now, the military has said that it placed explosives in the tunnel again, and this was in fact a part of the open-ended operation to identify and destroy the cross-border passageways. The Israeli Defense Force released a footage. The footage shows Israeli troops working with drilling equipment at the Lebanese border. Now, the forces claimed that the footage was shot on Friday and Saturday, and Israel has called on the international community to impose new sanctions on the Iranian-backed Hezbollah. The Turkey's foreign minister has said that Turkey will consider working with the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, that is, if he won a democratic election. The Turkish foreign minister Mevlut was speaking at a conference in Qatar, and he also went on to state that everyone in Syria and outside of Syria, including the refugees, should be able to vote. He added that they should decide as to who will rule the country through an election. At least about 8 people were killed in an explosion in Syria. A footage was released on social media, and it shows the aftermath of the explosion at the Al-Hal market in Afrin. The rubble of vehicle that burned down were seen, and a group of men carried the injured in a blanket to a waiting van. About 10,000 Hungarians protested a new labour law in Budapest. The new law allows employers to ask for 400 hours of overtime work per year from the employee. Now, the protesters feel that the law in fact signals increasing authoritarian rule of Prime Minister Viktor Orban. The protesters waved Hungarian and EU flags, and they also held up banners which said, "All I want for Christmas is some democracy." Now, this was the fourth and the biggest demonstration in the week. Trade unions, students and leftist opposition parties participated in the demonstrations. Now, thousands of people marched in anti-government protest in the Serbian capital of Belgrade. They protested over an attack on opposition politician. They were demanding policy changes by President Aleksandar Vučić and his ruling party. A week ago, another protest had taken place, and this was in response to the attack against the leader of the Serbian Left Party. Now, Borko Stefanovic had in fact been beaten up by a group of men. He suffered some minor injuries. The demonstrators protested against the government in Beirut. Hundreds of Lebanese called for an end to a stalemate over the formation of the government. The protests were organized by the Communist Party of Lebanon. They shouted revolution and other slogans. They gathered outside of the headquarters of the Prime Minister of Lebanon, and the members of the party also demanded that the government should abandon the economic policy. They feel that the country is being plagued by corruption, which is led by the economic policy. The Afrikaners gathered to commemorate the 180th anniversary of the Battle of Blood River in South Africa. They celebrated the victory of the Voortrekkers over the Zulus in the battle in 1838. They gathered on the side of a river near Dundee. A group of men and women sat on horses and also carried flags to showcase victory. Now, the Nkome Museum, which is on the other side of the river, tells the Zulu side of the story. Iraqis laid the cornerstone in rebuilding Mosul's Al-Nouri Mosque and the Leaning Minaret. The mosque had been destroyed last year in the ferocious battle against the Islamic State group. The 12th century mosque and minaret is dubbed Al-Hadba or the Hunchback. Now, the mosque had hosted Islamic State's chief Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi's only public appearance. The dozens of government officials and United Nations representatives gathered to see the foundation laid, and the cornerstone bore a black Arabic inscription which had the date laying printed on it. A heavy snowfall hit western Romania late on Saturday. It caused havoc on transport. Several road accidents were reported, and dozens of people were injured in the snowstorm. The Timisoara airport was affected by the bad weather with partial closures, and even the functioning of the train station was deferred. Now, the heavy snowfall rendered a Romanian pitch unplayable for a European Challenge Cup rugby game. The British solo round the world yachtswoman Susie Goodall was rescued by a cargo ship. This after her boat capsized and lost its mast in the southern Pacific Ocean. The 29-year-old had to wait for almost about 2 days for help to arrive during a violent storm. She had sent distress signals from 2,000 nautical miles west of Cape Horn, and she was the youngest entrant in the Golden Globe race. She was in the 4th position at the time of the incident. The construction of a passenger train was launched in Mexico. An indigenous ceremony to bless Mother Earth was conducted as a part of the launch in the town of Palenque. The Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador attended the ceremony, and the passenger train is one of the flagship works of his brand new administration. The Obrador has said that if the launch of this train increases the inflow of tourists, it will bring jobs, work and goodwill. The Darjeeling Himalayan Railway has kicked off operations to an evening run toy train service. The train will start from the Eastern Indian Siliguri junction. It will travel for a short 17-kilometer distance till the Rongtong station every day. This is the first of its kind service. Tour operators and tourists alike welcome the new initiative, and this new toy train will be in addition to the existing toy train in the Himalayas. The train runs from Eastern India's New Jalpaiguri to the scenic hill station of Darjeeling. The Pope will be turning 82 today, a day before his birthday. A group of children gave him a birthday cake. Now, the cake was decorated in the Vatican's colors of yellow and white. The children were at a Vatican pediatric dispensary. The Pope said that children teach grown-ups to lower themselves and be humble to understand life and people. The charity dispensary has called the Santa Marta assist almost about 400 children. The streets of France witnessed Santas participating in an annual charity run. As many as about 4,000 people dressed in the Santa costumes gathered in a Parisian suburb. 7 charities were involved in the event, and the mayor of the Issy-les-Moulineaux cited humanitarian reasons for going ahead with the event. The event comes at a time when there are security concerns over the Yellow Vest protests and the gun attack in Strasbourg. A Santa Claus in Berlin did the traditional chimney. He rappelled down a high-rise tower instead to deliver gifts to children. The Santa had dropped his sack of presents from his sleigh, and he found the slack at Kalhof Tower. Saint Nick then decided to surprise the kids at Panorama Punkt, and he delivered some gifts to the 24th floor using a rope ladder as the kids watched in excitement. The Santa then emptied the rest of his sack outside of the building.